Hey, Senior Master Sergeant Jackson. I'm going to be your instructor today on a class for CDI for December. It's called Counsel, all right? Now, I know when we counsel people, what are we really doing? We're helping them to solve problems, okay? So to see counsel basically is to problem solve. So when we use the term counsel in this class, it's not talking about a counseling session, it's talking about the act of problem solving, okay? So our scenario is the city of Cairo. We're going to give you a video about that. Before I get into that though, this is obviously a video, but I do not condone this as a preference over actually instructing in person. It is preferred to have a character development instructor or a chaplain or a commander to give this block of instruction in person, not to watch a video. So what's the benefit of these videos? Well, number one, if you have a cadet that did not show up to a CDI session, maybe he didn't make it to that particular meeting, he can make up it with this video. Number two, as a CDI instructor, you may want to get schooled up on your topic before you put together the class. This would be a good opportunity for that. And thirdly and finally, I know we don't want to go back into doing virtual training, but we may have to do that in the future. So this would obviously be a tool that we could use for virtual training. So please pay attention to this video. It's going to be a problem that you're going to end up solving in the end. So you're going to want to take notes, okay? Thank you.
In 2011, the Army Corps of Engineers faced an impossible decision. The worst flood in a century swelled the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. Flood waters would soon overflow the levees built to protect the communities along the rivers. The water had to go somewhere, which meant someone was going to get flooded. The Corps had to decide who would lose their homes. Cairo, Illinois sits at the confluence of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. In the days of steamboat trade between New Orleans and Chicago, Cairo flourished. During the Civil War, Cairo provided a base of operations for training and supplying troops in the Mississippi Theater. After the war, railways brought even more trade and prosperity to Cairo. Its population surged to 16,000. However, as automobiles replaced steamboats and railways found shorter routes around the town, Cairo's fortunes turned. Racial violence, boycotts, and civil unrest further ravaged the community. By 2011, Cairo had a population of 2,800, with many living in poverty. Because flooding had long threatened Cairo, the Army Corps of Engineers built and maintained a flood wall to protect the town and a system of levees to protect the surrounding farmland. These levees had a backup plan involving a floodway. In the event of a catastrophic flood, the Corps could destroy part of the levees. This opening would release floodwaters into an area about 200 square miles across the river in Missouri. In 1928, the federal government paid the residents of these lands about $17 per acre for the right to flood their lands in the event of an emergency. Meanwhile, as Cairo's fortunes fell, the Missouri farmlands flourished. Though only a few hundred people lived there, they tended some of the most fertile farmland in the region. The state of Missouri depended on these farmlands as a source of income. Now, in the spring of 2011, floodwaters reached a record height of 61 feet. The levees showed signs of impending failure. The Army Corps of Engineers had to make a grave decision. If they opened the floodway, the Mississippi would cover hundreds of miles of Missouri farmland. The river would flood dozens of farmhouses and threaten the state's economy. If they didn't open the floodway and the waters continued to rise, Cairo could be submerged and 2,800 residents left homeless. How would you decide? When faced with a choice like this, most of us will stop to think through our options before deciding. In 2011, as the floodwaters rose, thousands of people's homes and livelihoods and millions of dollars in property were at stake. A situation like this is, we hope, a once-in-a-lifetime decision, yet we make thousands of decisions every day, often without careful consideration. Some decisions are routine and don't require much thought. A study from Cornell University estimated that we make almost 300 decisions each day just about food. but many of the decisions we face result in consequences that affect our own lives and the lives of others. How often do you stop to think about your decisions? If you do stop to weigh your options, what questions do you ask yourself? What procedures do you follow before making a difficult choice? Counsel is the activity of thinking before deciding. Developing the habit of good counsel requires asking illuminating questions. Strengthening the virtue of counsel requires improving and refining your questions. In your small groups, you'll reflect on how you make decisions. Next, we'll explore several kinds of questions that can help you make better decisions. Use this discussion to start developing your own list of questions. Finally, we will return to our scenario. You will decide whether to flood the farmland or risk submerging the town.
All right, this is your class, Counsel, and I explained to you before. Look at that not so much as a counseling session, but in terms of problem solving, to counsel, all right, to problem solve. I'm your instructor, Senior Master Sergeant Jackson. I am South Carolina Wing Command NCO. Your reference here is going to be the Lean to Learn book, first one. If you have questions, if this was a class environment, you'd raise your hand, you'd stand up, you'd give me the answer, and you'd address me as sergeant, okay? That may not be an issue here. If this is a virtual class, then of course you can ask the questions online. The length will be about 30 minutes, okay? Safety, 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 okay? At this time, if you're in your house, I want you to look at any exits in the event that the house burns down or there's a gunman or something like that, okay? Look around you, okay? Pay attention to any hazards that could cause any issues. Pause the video, take some time out to correct your environment so you're obviously not threatened by anything or possibly can't hurt yourself. All right, the overview. In this class, we'll learn how to conquer tough choices. We'll start by figuring out our own decision-making quirks, like how we dodge tough calls. And then we'll use this knowledge to help a town decide if they should flood farmlands to save themselves from a flood. Buckle up, it's decision-making boot camp. All right, this is going to be one of your essay questions. What is the greatest amount of time you have spent thinking before making an important decision? And of course, you'll explain what did you have to decide. I'll give you an example. Don't use my example, but when I was in the Army, I basically wanted to knock out some nighttime college courses. So I was intimidated because I had never applied for college courses before. So the first month I procrastinated a lot. I was intimidated. I didn't want to get out of my comfort zone. But by the second month, I got really, really smart about how to decide on what college I wanted. Actually, by the second month, I actually decided on a college. However, I did not need to enroll at that point. I still had 2 months to enroll. So I took an additional month, which is 90 days, to say, okay, I already knew what college I was going to attend, but maybe there's other ones out there that may be better. And yeah, I'm glad I did that because that third month was the month in which I decided to attend Liberty University, which I am a student of right now. So that's a good example of taking a long time to make a decision. You may bring up a bad example, I don't know. Okay, what questions do you ask yourself before making an important decision? Values, okay, do you use your values? Now in CAP we have our 4 core values, okay? But I mean, you may belong to another organization like a church or the Boy Scouts or Junior ROTC that also has a value system that you're going to bring forward and use as a template to make a decision. Likewise, you probably have values that your family instilled within you, and you've probably developed your own values in life. So those are obviously going to be what we use as a template to make our decision. Consequences, okay, what is the worst case scenario? If you have maybe 3 solutions, look at the worst case scenario in all the 3 solutions, and I would go with the least threat in the consequence area of the 3 solutions. Gathering information, one of the most important things to do, okay? This is making phone calls. This is making sure that you have the resources, equipment. Don't just stay in a room and make a decision in a vacuum. You have to reach out and make sure you understand the holistic or the big picture of your decision and what you need to draw into it for resources. Risks, what risks are involved, okay? If you have three solutions you're choosing, you may want to go with the solution with the lowest risk. Likewise, with any risk, with any solution we're looking at, we need to minimize that risk, okay? To sort of bring down or marginalize its effect on us. Impact on others, okay? Pay attention to that. When we make a decision, we usually need resources, time, people, equipment, okay? Let's pretend that you put a detail together of 10 cadets to do something during an air show, right? Well, oops, 3 of those 10 cadets belong to another flight sergeant who needs them, okay? So yes, if you bring resources in to solve a problem, you have to make sure that there are no strings attached on those resources. Clear mind. When we're uber emotional about something, very emotional about something, we do a bad job of making a decision. I've made emotional decisions in my life. I've made logical decisions in my life. Guess which ones were the best ones? But anyhow, if you feel yourself getting tense and you have the opportunity, disengage. It's called disengagement, and basically break away from it. Take 5 minutes off, make a phone call to a loved one, just clear your mind, and then come back to the problem with a clear mind. Deadlines, okay? What's going to really impact on your problem or the solution is the deadline. I mean, you can make the best solution too late. That's no good. It's better to make sound and timely decisions, okay? And again, if your deadline is very short and you have a complex solution, you may want to come up with something simpler, okay? Okay, then we have our HOLT acronym, which is the 4 triggers that impact on your decisions. So you should not make a decision if you have any of these that are in the HOLT acronym. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times, like in a crisis, you have to make a decision now. So regardless of these 4 reasons to not make a decision, make the decision, okay? However, if you can pause or delay making a decision, and any of these 4 items are affecting you, you probably need to take a break or to resolve it. The first one is hunger. I believe there's a candy bar that has a commercial after that called Hangry or something like that. I don't know. The next one is angry. If you're angry about something, you're probably not going to make the best decision. It's the same thing with hunger, right? Lonely. If you have to make a decision, you need to bring in as many opinions as possible. I strongly recommend that. Do not do it all on your own, okay? You need to share with other people, okay, and other thoughts, and have them bounce back to you. And of course, tired. If you're tired, you're not going to make a good decision. Now, what's tired, right? If you've been awake for 19 hours, which is 5 hours of sleep, you're the equivalency of being drunk as far as how tired you are, your sleep deprivation. Your reaction time is as if you'd had too much to drink, okay? So would you make a decision if you were drunk? I think you know the answer to that. No. So you shouldn't make a decision without the proper amount of sleep. All right, what's the strategies have you used to avoid making a decision? And so basically we're trying to come up with what gets in your way when you try to make a decision, okay? Procrastination, that's a big one. About 70% of Americans do that. Procrastination is a form of anxiety, if you will. It also is a sign of ADHD. It could also be a sign of depression. So I want you to pay attention to that. There's another thing called avoidance. Procrastination and avoidance are not the same thing, okay? If I procrastinate, that means I usually delay a decision on one item. Avoidance is when I just ignore the whole thing. For example, let's say there's an air show coming up and I got to pick a detail, but everything else, like a STEM booth I have set up, I'm really good with. But the detail puts me at a discomfort. I don't like choosing people per se. Okay, well, that's procrastination. Now let's take that same air show with the STEM booth that I'm running, and let's just say I don't even want to think about any of it. Okay, I just put it out of my mind. And I hope it goes away. Okay, that's called avoidance. And obviously, somebody that's in avoidance has more mental issues than somebody that just procrastinates. Okay, and if you are avoiding, that may be the sign of something more serious. Overloaded. Okay, a lot of times we're overworked, and to get another tasking, we really can't do it to the best of our ability. I want you to do one of two things. The first thing is, if you are truly over tasked, you need to tell whomever is assigning you this new task that, hey, either help take some of this off my plate and give it to somebody else so I can assist you with that task, or give that task to someone else. However, if that's your boss, I recommend you do this first, and you should do this in all situations first. Yes, you're going to feel the knee-jerk reaction of being overwhelmed, of course. I want you to lay out all your paperwork. I want you to write out all your responsibilities or organization, all right? Then you're going to prioritize 1 through 10 or 1 through whatever, okay? What's the most important to the least important. And then you're going to take a calendar out or a weekly planner, and you're going to plot when you need to get these things done, okay? Sometimes we think we're overwhelmed when in truth we haven't organized our thoughts. So the 4 things, right? Organize, prioritize, deputize, find somebody else that can do some of these taskings. And then the last one is finalize, which is also following up, okay? Okay, distracted. If we're distracted, we sometimes don't make decisions, i.e., as you can see in this picture, you get a call from a loved one, or maybe you want to have fun with your friends instead of do your homework, whatever, okay? Distractions are not good. Impulsivity, okay? I had to look this one up. Impulsivity is somebody that makes a decision too quick, too early, without enough information. It's almost like they're playing hot potato, okay? It's like, okay, we got to solve this thing. This is the solution. And they don't slow down to even think if it's the best solution. They just jump to a solution, okay? That's a bad thing, okay? You know, procrastinating is probably the opposite of that. That's delaying a decision and maybe not making one at all. This, it probably is more along the lines of making a quick decision to get it off your plate, to forget about it, but obviously you're going to head towards failure in that method. Okay, and this is another essay question for you, all right? Would you flood the farms or the town, and why? And you should have taken notes when you watched that video, and I'll tell you this much, there'll be another video at the end that will have their actual answer. Okay, here's another essay question. What personal experiences might be affecting the way you understand the situation? For example, do you have any first-hand experience of a flood? And that would be a first-hand experience of probably any crisis, flood, or farms, or whatever the case might be. Basically, what we're saying here is there are some people with experience in these things that may have a better idea or a better solution than somebody who does not have experience. Okay, a couple more essay questions. On to the Cairo flood. Okay, farmer or resident, all right? Who do you side with? I mean, and personally, I mean, are you a urban, suburban resident or a rural resident? Okay, that's going to be one of your essay questions. Trust the government. Do you trust the government? Okay, that's a loaded question. Not to get into conspiracy theories, just basically, if you trust the government 100%, just state that. Or if there's areas of the government you don't trust, specify, please. Yeah, and explain why. What would you change, or excuse me, what would change your mind? Okay, so when you make a decision, a lot of times we're committed to the decision. Sometimes facts or things come in that cause us to make a new decision or to alter our decision. And what could they be? Well, I like to use this acronym here. If you look at it, it actually spells out tree, okay? But time's a big thing that affects our decision-making process, right? Let's say we have a month to make a decision, and all of a sudden the suspense has been moved up till next Tuesday, okay? That's going to probably change our decision. Okay, respect. If we're, like I explained this before, if we're utilizing resources like time, equipment, personnel, we need to clear it through people within our squadron that we can utilize these things and make sure that they know what we're doing, okay? Evidence. You may have new evidence come in to your scenario that might cause you to alter or change your decision. And empathy. And empathy is just caring enough about a person where it affects you, okay? So maybe you chose somebody or you're choosing to do something that might hurt somebody's feelings because maybe there's a negative history there somewhere. I don't know, okay? But be aware of people's feelings when you do this kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to compare problem solving or to counsel with the recipe for a good decision, okay? And you'll follow my analogy once we go along the lines. So, if we were to break it into four phases, we would first gather ingredients, next prep and season, right? Thirdly, we would cook and simmer, and finally, the fourth step would be to serve and savor, okay? So, let's go on with this. Okay, now let's gather our ingredients. First off, we want to define our problem, okay? That sounds obvious, but believe it or not, a lot of people don't spend enough time defining the specifics of their problems. That's what's the end state, situation, recommendation, or foreseeable results, okay? Also, this is important. If you're giving a tasker or the problem from somebody else, ask as many questions as you can. And also brief the problem back to them to make sure you have a complete understanding of what problem you were given to solve. You want to collect data. Probably one of the most important things. This is you talking to people, making phone calls, using the internet, and bringing in all the research you can to make the best decision possible. You want to identify solutions, and this is called brainstorming. So basically, get yourself a committee of people that are working with you on this problem, and just shoot ideas back and forth. Grab a dry erase board or a piece of paper, jot them down. Don't slow down and process. It's all about brainstorming, getting the information out there, and then you can come back. Surprisingly, some of the weirdest ideas that come out of brainstorming usually end up being the idea that you implement, which is kind of weird. And then on to prep and season. Okay, we want to analyze and evaluate the options we have. In the military, when we have a problem as staff guys, we usually come up with what we call COAs, which is courses of action. And usually you have to develop 3 of them for every problem and allow the commander to decide between the 3, okay? So let's say that we have 3 courses of action for our problem. You would, for each of these, develop a list of pros and cons, or benefits and hindrances of each of these problems, all right? Prioritize, okay, what is the most important part of your problem? Is it the cost? Is it a time factor? Is it a personnel factor, okay? Fixate on the most important aspect of your problem and make sure that that is the most important portion of whatever solution you've decided on. Emotions, okay? We are not machines, we are people, all right? A lot of times we make decisions, we hurt people's feelings, we don't pay attention, we don't possess the empathy. Have transparency in everything you do. Make sure you communicate what you're doing to everyone. That way nobody gets left out in the dark, nobody gets their feelings hurt. And if a person has ill feelings towards you, create an environment where you're approachable, okay? So you can resolve these things. Right. Now cook and simmer, okay? Let's compare our idea. Again, I talked about pros and cons, but let's really look at the other ideas now that we've pushed them through the other processes, all right? And see how they hold up against each other. Feedback, okay? I want you, when you come up with these 3 solutions, go to somebody who hasn't heard any of this yet, okay? Lay it all out for them without influencing their decision and get honest to God feedback. And I'm telling you this right now, just give them the raw data without your bias, okay, and let them form their own opinions. They will surprise you, okay? And they may agree with how your concepts are. Marinate, okay? What does this mean? Well, we know when it comes to, meat, we put pretty much an acid in a base so it kind of breaks it down and tastes better, but how do you marinate when it comes to problem solving? Easy, okay? So we made a decision. We're going to go with course of action number 2. We like it, okay? We don't have to implement it for 2 weeks, okay? So like I told you in my scenario, I decided what college I wanted to go to after the 2nd month, right? I gave myself a 3rd month to find the best college instead of a college, all right? Same, all right? You've written an email correspondence to somebody. Maybe you were angry about something or you're trying to communicate a problem and you did the smart thing of not sending it and, sleeping and then waking up the next morning and re-looking at it and going, ew, all right, and then changing it to be more effective. Well, that's the marination process, okay? Once you solve something, you have a period of time to sort of bring in other factors and see if it holds up before you actually execute. We're going to serve and savor now, okay? So you got to choose, okay? A couple of things about choosing. Number one, when you choose, commit and go forward, all right? Don't delay and don't procrastinate, just commit. The other thing, when you choose early enough to make the decision. For example, if the commander comes to me about, I don't know, come up with methods of making money for our Christmas party, okay? All right, great. It would be best that I come to him with a solution before Thanksgiving, not on Christmas Eve, okay? I got to give him room to implement my idea. Hey, once you made a decision, you are responsible for it. All right? If you're in charge of the group, it is your decision. Meaning that if your boss or whomever challenges your decision, don't blame it on the group. You, by being in charge and saying this is your decision, you are endorsing it. It's yours. Flexibility. Again, let's say that we made a decision on a Sunday and 2 Sundays later we're going to execute, or let's say set up a STEM booth, all right? Well, other factors might come in, i.e. maybe they reschedule the air show. Maybe cadets that we're relying on aren't showing up. Maybe the space that we want to utilize can't be used, or maybe it's going to rain out, okay? Again, stay flexible. Don't be so committed to your solution that you're rigid, all right? Be willing to keep your mind open, okay? Okay, now down to crunch time, all right? This is our exercise. If this is a public setting, okay, I want you to establish small groups. So each small group has 10 minutes to debate and decide whether to flood the farm or risk flooding Cairo. Each group will appoint a representative, one person, to address the unit. The representative should explain how the group reached its decision, okay? So if you're actually in an environment with an audience and group of people, sure, break down to small groups. If you're by yourself watching this online, then you're going to be required to do this all on your own. Well,
You're probably wondering what happened with the flood. By the 2nd of May 2011, the waters reached nearly 62 feet and had already breached the levee in 2 places upstream of Cairo. Major General Michael Walsh of the Army Corps of Engineers ordered 3 detonations to open the levees. Floodwaters covered hundreds of square miles of farmland. Instead of being praised for saving Cairo, General Walsh was criticized for failing to open the floodway sooner. Today, Cairo remains a struggling small town. It's lost another 25% of its population since the 2011 flood. Over half of its children live in poverty. The surrounding farmland suffered millions of dollars in damages, but less than 1% of the farmland was permanently damaged. Some farmers are still seeking compensation for their losses. Although you may never have to make such a grave decision, you will make thousands of decisions every day. We all want to make better decisions. The key to making better decisions is practicing counsel, making a habit of asking deliberative questions. You can practice counsel even when facing simple everyday decisions. Should I have a dessert tonight? Should I send a thank you card? Should I seek a leadership position in the squadron? Should I wake earlier to exercise or stay up later to practice a musical instrument? Should I post this to a social media account? Use your questions from this lesson to improve your deliberation. Practicing counsel doesn't guarantee you'll make the right decision every time. However, as you practice asking questions, you'll tend to make better decisions and make them more consistently. You'll also be better prepared to explain your decisions. Practicing counsel will help you become a responsible and trustworthy leader.
well, hopefully either you or your group picked the right decision. And if you didn't, don't feel bad, okay? The most important thing wasn't the flooding the town or flooding the farmland. What happened in Cairo is that they delayed making a decision until it was too late, and that caused more problems. So either answer A or B could have been right if implementation was done early. Remember, an adequate idea implemented in time is a brilliant idea compared to a brilliant idea implemented too late. Okay? Okay, let's wrap this up. Conclusion. As we have navigated the complexities of life, counsel serves as a guiding principle, prompting us to carefully consider the potential consequences of our choices and act with integrity and accountability. Now, this is a very important quote I liked here. This is done by Theodore Roosevelt. In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do nothing, is to do nothing. Okay? And of course, that's exactly what happened in Cairo. In summary, exploring the concepts of counsel, this class discussed its applications in various situations, including the flooding scenario. Participants examined their own decision-making habits and strategies for avoiding decisions. The flooding scenario highlighted the importance of the consequences, considering multiple perspectives and potential consequences before deciding. And thanks a lot for listening to this class. All right. If there's any questions, you can either email them to me or your small group leader or your CDI or chaplain or squadron commander can answer them for you.